I stood outside the grand hall, my heart pounding so hard I thought the entire street could hear it. The air smelled of roses and champagne, laughter spilled out of the open doors, and music floated through the evening air. Inside, my son was getting married. My only son. But I wasn't invited. I stared at my phone, reading the message again, the words cutting me like knives. "Don't come to my wedding. You're no longer my family." My hands shook, the screen blurring with the tears I refused to let fall. I typed just one word back. Understood. He didn't know what that word meant for me. He didn't know what I could do with just one phone call. But he would. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. I had raised him alone after his father died. I worked double shifts, took extra hours at the library, and even sold my wedding jewellery to pay for his college. Every night I reminded myself that everything I endured was for him to have a better life. And now, standing here in my best dress, I wasn't even allowed to see him walk down the aisle. My chest felt hollow, my legs weak. I remembered the last time I had seen him, 3 weeks ago, in the driveway of the new house I helped him get. He hugged me distractedly, his eyes on his phone, muttering something about wedding plans. His fiancée stood by the door, arms crossed, her smile sharp and cold. She never liked me. She said I was too involved. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Now the laughter from the hall grew louder. I pictured the chandeliers, the white flowers, the tables lined with crystal glasses. My son was probably laughing, smiling, pretending I didn't exist. My fingers trembled as I scrolled to the contact I hadn't called in years. My oldest friend. Someone who knew everything about our family. Every secret, every debt, every favour owed. I hesitated for one long, aching second and pressed call. The voice on the other end answered immediately. "It's been a while," he said. "I was wondering when you'd call me for something big." I swallowed hard. "It's time," I whispered. "My son, he thinks I don't matter anymore." He chuckled, low and knowing. "Then let's remind him exactly who you are." My heart raced as he gave me instructions. My pulse thudded in my ears. When I hung up, I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt dangerous. Inside the hall, a new song started playing, and the crowd cheered. I took one deep breath and turned away, walking into the night with purpose. I didn't need to see the wedding. I didn't need to sit in the back, unwanted and humiliated. All I needed to do was wait. And I didn't have to wait long. My phone buzzed once, twice, 5 times. Notifications and missed calls started pouring in. My lips curved into the smallest, most bitter smile. My son had no idea what I had set in motion. By morning, he would. And by the next evening, he would regret every single word he had sent me. My phone buzzed again and I glanced down at the screen. 42 missed calls, then 50, and then 60. The morning light crept through the curtains of my small bedroom, painting the walls in soft gold. But there was nothing soft about how I felt. My phone was still buzzing on the nightstand, vibrating against the wood like it was alive. 60 missed calls, 10 new voicemails, a flood of text messages that I refused to open. I just sat up slowly, my back stiff from the night, staring at the phone like it was a bomb waiting to go off. I already knew who had called. My son. His fiancée. Maybe even his new in-laws. But they weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they had realised what one call from me could do. The voice of my old friend still echoed in my head. He'll learn. Trust me. He'll learn. I had trusted him before, years ago, and he had never failed me. I reached for the phone, hesitating for a moment, then picked it up. The first voicemail played. It was my son's voice, frantic and sharp. "Mum, what did you do? You can't just... How could you? Call me back right now." His voice cracked at the end, and I felt a twisted mixture of anger and satisfaction. He wasn't calling me Mom with love anymore. It was fear. The second voicemail was his bride. Her voice was higher, almost hysterical. "You ruined everything. Do you hear me? Everything. My family is furious and—" She sobbed audibly, then screamed, "Answer your phone!" I closed my eyes and leaned back against the headboard, letting the memories wash over me like waves. I thought about all the times I had been there for him, every scraped knee, every school project, every late-night fever. I thought about the first time he ever said, "I hate you, Quentin," when he was 15 and I wouldn't let him go to some party. He had cried in his room afterward, and I'd made his favourite soup, leaving it outside his door. He never said thank you. And now, at 28, he had sent me a message that ended our relationship in one line. "You're no longer my family." My stomach tightened, a pit of cold forming in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't the time for tears. This was the time to teach a lesson. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and brewed myself a cup of coffee. The smell filled the air, comforting and familiar. Outside, the street was quiet, the sun just beginning to warm the rooftops. My neighbours had no idea that last night my entire world had shifted. I carried my coffee to the table and finally opened the first text message. It was from my son. "Mum, please, we need to talk. Please answer." The next one was shorter. "I'm sorry." I almost laughed. Sorry? After publicly humiliating me, cutting me off, making sure everyone knew I wasn't invited to his wedding. He was sorry now, but I wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. My phone buzzed again. An incoming call. His name lit up the screen. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. Then I silenced it and opened the blinds. Across the street, Mrs. Kennedy was watering her garden. She waved, smiling, and I forced a polite nod. If she only knew. I sat back down and scrolled through the messages again. Some were from numbers I didn't recognize. One said, "If you don't fix this, the deal is off." Another read, "Call me now before it's too late." My heartbeat picked up. They were feeling the consequences already. It's too late. My heartbeat picked up. They were feeling the consequences already. My friend had acted faster than I imagined. I picked up my second phone, the one my son didn't know about, and dialed the secure number he had given me years ago. He answered on the first ring. "Morning?" he said casually, as if nothing had happened. "It's done. They'll be calling you non-stop for the next 48 hours. I exhaled slowly. "They already are. 60 missed calls." He chuckled. "Good. Then we're on schedule. Phase 2 starts tonight." My hands trembled, though I tried to keep my voice steady. "Are you sure this will work? I just want him to understand." "Oh, he'll understand," he said darkly. "By the time we're done, he'll wish he had never sent that message." I hung up and sank into my chair, the weight of everything pressing on my shoulders. A part of me wondered if I was going too far, but then I remembered standing outside that wedding hall, the sound of laughter in the air, and the cold words on my phone, "You're no longer my family." My jaw tightened. No, he had chosen this. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was a video call. I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to see his face. I swiped up. My son's face appeared, pale and frantic, his hair messy like he hadn't slept. "Mom, please, what did you do?" he shouted before I could even say hello. "You need to undo it now. They're threatening to—" The call froze for a second, then cut off. My stomach dropped. Threatening to what? I stared at the blank screen, my heart hammering, when suddenly a loud knock rattled my front door. 3 sharp bangs, urgent and heavy. I froze. Then the knocking came again, louder this time, followed by a deep voice calling my name. "Open the door. We need to talk, now." The pounding on the door shook me to my core, reverberating through the quiet house. My coffee cup trembled in my hand, and I set it down before it could spill. 3 more loud bangs, then silence, followed by the same deep voice. "Open the door. We need to talk, now." My chest tightened. My first thought was that it was my son, but the voice was older, rougher, and carried a kind of authority that made my stomach clench. I crept toward the door, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor, and peered through the peephole. Two men in dark suits stood on my porch, one tall and broad with sharp features, the other shorter, stocky, and holding a black folder. Their black SUV was parked across the street. My heart skipped a beat. They didn't look like neighbours. They didn't look like anyone I wanted to see. The tall man knocked once more, softer this time. "Ma'am, we need a word. This concerns your son." My blood ran cold. For a moment I considered pretending I wasn't home, but my car was in the driveway. They knew I was here. Slowly I unlatched the door and opened it a crack. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice low but steady. The tall man glanced over my shoulder, scanning the interior of my home, then met my eyes. "We're here because of what happened last night. Something you set in motion. We need to discuss it, privately." I hesitated, feeling the air grow heavier around me. "I don't know what you're talking about." His brow furrowed slightly, and for a moment he looked almost amused. "Oh, I think you do. May we come in?" Every instinct screamed at me to say no. I wanted to slam the door, run upstairs, hide under the bed like a child. But instead, I opened the door wider and gestured for them to enter. They stepped inside, their shoes clicking against the floor. The taller one moved toward the living room, scanning the pictures on the walls. Me and my son through the years, smiling in graduation robes, holding up fishing rods, hugging on Christmas morning. The memories felt like knives now. The shorter man opened his black folder, flipping through papers quickly before speaking. "Mrs. Halford, we're aware you made a call last night to a certain Mr. Donovan. You asked him to intervene after your son excluded you from his wedding." My breath caught. "How do you know that?" The taller man leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "We know because everything that happened after that call led back to you. Your son's wedding, the venue, his bride's family. There's a lot of panic right now, and a lot of people are very interested in speaking with you." My legs felt like lead. I just made one call," I said softly. I didn't hurt anyone." The short man tilted his head. "Maybe not directly. But the chain reaction? Well, let's just say it's impressive. You've got their attention." He slid a photo from the folder across my coffee table. I stared at it and felt my pulse race. It was the wedding hall. Empty chairs, police lights flashing outside. The decorations looked torn and scattered. What happened?" I whispered, my hands trembling. The tall man finally spoke again, his voice calm and deliberate. "Your one call triggered an investigation. Financials were frozen, deals were halted. Guests started leaving in a panic when certain truths were revealed. By the end of the night, the wedding wasn't just over. It was a disaster." My mind spun. Part of me felt satisfaction, but another part, deep down, felt a pang of guilt. I imagined my son standing in that hall, humiliated, his perfect wedding in ruins. "Why are you here?" I asked finally. The short man leaned forward. "Because your son is begging everyone to fix this, and because the people affected want to know how far you're willing to go. You've started something, Mrs. Halford, and it won't just disappear because you turn off your phone." My phone buzzed on the table, almost on cue. I glanced down and saw my son's name flashing again. I didn't answer. The tall man finally spoke again, his voice calm and deliberate. "Your one call triggered an investigation. Financials were frozen, deals were halted. Guests started leaving in a panic when certain truths were revealed. By the end of the night, the wedding wasn't just over, it was a disaster." My mind spun. Part of me felt satisfaction, but another part, deep down, felt a pang of guilt. I imagined my son standing in that hall, humiliated, his perfect wedding in ruins. "Why are you here?" I asked finally. The short man leaned forward. "Because your son is begging everyone to fix this, And because the people affected want to know how far you're willing to go. You've started something, Mrs. Halford, and it won't just disappear because you turn off your phone. My phone buzzed on the table, almost on cue. I glanced down and saw my son's name flashing again. I didn't answer. The tall man studied me, his gaze sharp but curious. You have power over this situation, more than you realize, and if you want to protect your son, you're going to have to make a choice today. My throat tightened. What choice? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Either you make another call and end this now, or you let it play out. But if you let it play out, I promise you, he will come crawling back to you, but not without consequences. My heart pounded in my ears. The temptation was there. Let him suffer. Let him learn. But what if it went too far? My phone buzzed again. A new message flashed across the screen. Mom, please. They're threatening me. Please pick up. My breath hitched. Threatening him? I whispered. The short man closed his folder slowly. He's in deeper than you know. His bride's family isn't who they seem to be, and your one call shook their entire world. Now they're deciding how to respond. He's calling because he knows you're his only chance. My knees felt weak, and I sank into the couch, burying my face in my hands. I just wanted him to understand what he did to me. Oh, he understands now, the tall man said quietly. But understanding comes with a price. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. The screen lit up with my son, sitting in a dark room, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. Behind him, shadows moved. His voice cracked as he spoke. Mum, please. They said if you don't call back, they'll... The video cut off abruptly, leaving the screen black. The room spun around me and I dropped the phone onto the carpet, my heartbeat echoing in my skull. The tall man crouched down to meet my eyes. It's time to decide. Right now. Will you make the call, or will you watch what happens next? And before I could answer, the lights in my house flickered, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. The lights died with a sharp click, and darkness swallowed the room whole. My heart lurched into my throat. The two men in suits froze, their silhouettes barely visible against the dim glow from the streetlight slipping through the curtains. For a moment, there was only silence, so heavy and suffocating it felt alive. Then a faint creak from the floor above. My house groaned as if someone else was inside. The taller man's voice broke the stillness, calm but edged with tension. Stay where you are. Don't move. He slipped a hand inside his jacket. My pulse quickened. Wha? Who else is here? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just motioned to the shorter man, who moved toward the hallway with silent precision. The air was thick with the smell of dust and coffee and something else. Fear. My fingers twitched toward my phone on the carpet. I picked it up, the screen lighting my face with a soft glow. More missed calls. Another video message from my son. My hands shook as I pressed play. His voice was a frantic whisper this time, as if he were afraid someone would hear him. Mum, I don't know what they're going to do. They said if you don't end this tonight. His face disappeared as the screen went black again. A sudden loud bang echoed from upstairs and I jumped so hard my phone clattered onto the carpet. The short man's voice came down the stairs, sharp and clipped. Clear, but someone's been here. The taller man turned toward me. Mrs. Halford, we're leaving. It's not safe here anymore. My voice cracked. Leaving. What about my son? He crouched in front of me, his eyes dark and intense. You want to save him? Then you need to listen very carefully. Right now, every second matters. The people who sent that message, they're not playing games anymore. And if the power in your house is out, it means they're already one step ahead. My skin prickled. One step ahead. Of what? He stood abruptly, scanning the windows. Of making this more than just a warning. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned for me to grab my phone and follow him. I hesitated, then scooped up the phone, the screen still glowing with unread messages. I could see the latest one at the top. "We warned you." My stomach churned. I grabbed my coat and slipped into my shoes without thinking, following the men out the front door and into the chilly night. The street was empty except for their black SUV, its headlights off. I noticed something that made my heart skip. Across the street, Mrs. Kennedy's garden lights were out too. The whole block was dark. The taller man opened the rear door. "Get in." I slid into the back seat, clutching my phone like a lifeline. The SUV smelled like leather and faint cologne, but beneath that, there was something metallic, like gun oil. The engine purred to life, and we glided silently down the street. My neighborhood, usually so familiar, felt foreign in the darkness. My phone buzzed again. Another video. My breath caught as I pressed play. My son was sitting in the same dim room, but now he wasn't alone. Two figures in masks stood behind him. He flinched as one of them placed a hand on his shoulder. His voice was hoarse. "Mom, they said, if you don't call him back in 10 minutes. The video cut off again. I nearly dropped the phone. I have to call him." The tall man's voice was firm. "Not yet. If you call now, you'll look desperate. You need leverage first. Otherwise, they'll keep pushing." My throat tightened. Leverage? This is my son's life. He glanced back at me in the rearview mirror. "Exactly. And that's why you need to play this smart." I clutched my coat around me, shivering despite the warmth of the car. My mind raced back to the first call I'd made to Donovan. He had said he would handle everything. He had promised my son would understand. But now my son wasn't just humiliated. He was in danger. My voice shook as I asked, "Where are we going?" The short man sitting beside me now finally spoke. "To meet someone who can fix this, or make it worse. It depends on you." My heart pounded louder with every turn we took. We left the neighborhood behind, the streets growing emptier, the houses giving way to dark warehouses and industrial lots. Finally, the SUV slowed in front of a chain-link gate. The taller man pressed a button, and the gate slid open silently. We drove into a dimly lit yard, the ground crunching under the tires. A single warehouse loomed ahead, its windows blacked out. The SUV stopped and the engine died. The taller man turned to me. "Whatever happens in there, stay calm. Say only what you need to say. No more, no less." My palms were slick with sweat as I nodded. He opened the door, and the cold night air hit me like a slap. The three of us walked to the warehouse door, which creaked open from the inside before we even knocked. A man in a dark coat stepped aside to let us in. The air inside smelled like oil and damp concrete. Dim overhead lights cast long shadows. In the center of the room was a single metal chair, and sitting in it, tied at the wrists, was my son. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes wide as they landed on me. "Mom," he croaked. My legs wobbled, and I wanted to run to him, but the tall man put a hand on my shoulder. "Wait." From the shadows, another figure emerged. A man in a grey suit, his hair slicked back, his expression calm but cold. He walked slowly toward me, hands clasped behind his back. "Mrs. Halford," he said smoothly, "we've been expecting you." I swallowed hard. "Please, just let him go. I'll do whatever you want." The man in the grey suit tilted his head slightly, studying me like a hawk. "Whatever I want," he repeated softly. Then he gestured, and one of the masked men stepped forward, holding up my phone. "Good," the man said. "Then let's start with your contact list. I need to know exactly who you've been calling, and who else knows what you did." My blood ran cold, and my son's panicked eyes met mine as I realized what he was really after. And then, from somewhere deeper in the warehouse, came the sound of footsteps, multiple footsteps, and a voice I hadn't heard in years, calm and chilling, saying, "She doesn't have to tell you anything, because she called me first." The sound of that voice froze every muscle in my body. Smooth, calm and commanding, it rolled through the warehouse like cold wind through a graveyard. The men in suits turned toward the shadowed hallway, their expressions hardening. My son's eyes darted between them and me, fear written across his face. Then, out of the darkness, he appeared. Donovan. His grey hair slicked back, his dark overcoat flowing like he had just stepped out of a storm. His eyes locked on mine, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a strange wave of relief and terror. "You don't have to tell them anything," Donovan repeated, his voice steady as he slowly stepped forward, each footstep echoing against the concrete floor. "Because she called me first." The man in the grey suit, the one who had been interrogating me, straightened his posture. His calm mask wavered for a moment. "Donovan," he said, a slight edge of irritation in his voice. "I should have known you'd be behind this." Donovan smirked faintly. "You underestimated her. That was your mistake." My heart hammered as the two men sized each other up. My son whimpered in the chair, twisting his wrists against the rope. One of the masked guards tightened his grip on his shoulder, and he flinched. Donovan's gaze flicked to my son, then back to the grey-suited man. "Untie him," Donovan said. The man in the grey suit tilted his head. "You don't give orders here. You've already caused enough chaos. Her call to you destroyed an evening my clients have spent months, maybe years, preparing for." Donovan took another step closer, and the tension in the air grew sharp enough to cut. "Your clients," he said evenly, "had this coming, and if you don't untie him, I'll make sure that what happened at that wedding looks like a minor inconvenience." My pulse spiked. I didn't know what Donovan meant by that, but I believed him. The man in the grey suit hesitated, then nodded at one of the masked guards. Slowly my son's wrists were freed. He immediately reached up to rub his raw skin, his voice trembling. "Mom, I wanted to run to him, hold him, tell him everything would be okay, but I couldn't move. Not yet." Donovan glanced back at me. "Do you see now? He understands. He finally understands what it means to cut you off." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I didn't mean for this to go so far." The grey-suited man interrupted with a sharp laugh. "Oh, it's gone farther than you can imagine. And it's not over yet. You think you can call one man and flip the world upside down. There are consequences for actions like that." He snapped his fingers, and another masked man emerged from the shadows, holding a small black briefcase. He set it on the metal table with a heavy thunk. My chest tightened as the grey-suited man opened it, revealing stacks of documents, photos, and something that made my blood run cold, a small, black revolver. "We could end this right now," he said softly, "if you're willing to take responsibility for what you've done." Donovan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "No, she doesn't owe you anything. In fact, it's you who should be worried, because the next call I make won't just ruin a wedding or a few deals, it will ruin you." The grey-suited man's smile faltered, and for a moment he looked less like a predator and more like prey. "You wouldn't dare," he said. Donovan's smile was cold. "Try me." Then, without warning, the warehouse lights flickered again, and a loud crash echoed from outside, metal against metal, like a gate being torn open. Everyone froze. The masked men exchanged nervous glances. The grey-suited man's jaw tightened. He snapped his fingers again, and the lights went out completely, plunging us into blackness. My son grabbed my arm, trembling. "Mum, what's happening?" he whispered. Before I could answer, the sound of multiple vehicles screeched outside, followed by the unmistakable thump of boots on gravel. Donovan leaned close enough that I could hear his whisper even in the chaos. "I told you, Shaz, the next call would change everything. And then the warehouse door exploded inward with a deafening bang, blinding white light flooding the room, and figures in tactical gear stormed in, shouting commands. The warehouse exploded into chaos. The deafening crash of the door reverberated in my skull as blinding white light flooded the room. Shadows scattered, and in an instant, a squad of men in black tactical gear stormed inside, their heavy boots pounding against the concrete. "Down! Hands where we can see them!" they shouted, their voices booming over the sudden roar of confusion. My son screamed, grabbing my arm instinctively as we crouched together. The masked men froze, then scrambled for cover, their black gloves glinting in the harsh light. The man in the grey suit held up his hands, his calm facade cracking into raw panic for the first time. "Wait, there's been a misunderstanding." A single laser dot appeared on his chest and he went silent. Donovan stood tall, unmoved by the chaos, his voice calm but commanding. "Stand down. Everyone stands down. This is over." But it wasn't over yet. Two of the masked men tried to make a break for the side door, but the tactical team moved like shadows, cutting them off and slamming them against the wall in seconds. Zip ties clicked, shouts echoed. My son's trembling hand clutched mine so tight it hurt, and I realised for the first time in years he was truly afraid, not of me, not of life, but of the consequences he never saw coming. The leader of the tactical team approached Donovan, their movements crisp and confident. "Target secured," he said. "What about the package?" Donovan's gaze flicked to me and my son. "The package stays with me. She's off limits." My son blinked rapidly, whispering, "Mum, what's happening? Who are these people? Who is he?" I looked into his eyes, and for the first time since that terrible message, "You're no longer my family," I saw the little boy I had raised, lost and scared. I took a deep breath. "He's the reason you're still alive." The man in the grey suit was dragged toward the centre of the room, his expensive jacket wrinkled, his face twisted in fury. "You'll regret this, Donovan," he spat. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Donovan smirked, his voice low and deadly. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and now, so do you." He gestured to the tactical team. "Take him." They hauled the grey-suited man toward the waiting vehicles outside. His shouts echoed through the warehouse, growing fainter with every step until the night swallowed them. Then, as suddenly as it began, the warehouse fell silent except for my son's shaky breaths. Donovan crouched in front of him, his expression softer now. "Do you understand what your mother did for you tonight?" My son swallowed hard, nodding. I didn't know any of this." Donovan glanced at me, and for a fleeting second, I saw pride in his eyes. "She made one call, one, and she saved your life even after you disowned her." My son turned to me, his voice breaking. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was stupid. I thought I didn't need you. I thought—" He choked on his words, tears sliding down his face. I reached out, touching his cheek gently. "You thought I was disposable," I said softly, "but blood and love, they're not disposable." He buried his face against my shoulder, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child, and I held him tight, my heart breaking and mending at the same time. The tactical team began filing out, the storm of the night slowly quieting. Donovan rose, his coat brushing the floor. "This is the last time, Marion," he said, using my name for the first time all night. "He got his lesson, but you have to understand, actions like his come with enemies. I've bought him time. Use it wisely." I nodded, too exhausted to speak. The SUV ride home was silent, except for the soft sound of my son's sniffling as he leaned against me, his head heavy on my shoulder. For the first time, he didn't pull away. When we reached my house, the lights were back on, like nothing had happened. The neighbourhood slept in peace, oblivious to the war that had just been fought in the shadows. As we stepped inside, my son turned to me, his voice hoarse. "Mom, I'll never forget this, I swear." I studied his face, seeing both the boy I had raised and the man he was becoming. "I don't need your promises," I said gently. "I just need your respect." He nodded, tears glinting in his eyes. That night, he stayed in the guest room, too shaken to leave my side. And as I sat in the quiet living room, staring at my phone with its flood of missed calls and messages, I realized something. I hadn't just gotten my son back. I had reminded everyone who tried to erase me that I was still here, strong, unshakable, and no one would ever forget it. By morning, the 60 missed calls had stopped, and for the first time in a long time, I let the phone stay silent.